You may have seen Audi's Matrix LED headlights cutting through the darkness like a scalpel. You may have heard how Quattro all-wheel drive makes a sedan as stable on icy corners as a train on rails. But have you ever wondered how a brand that began with just a handful of craftsmen more than 120 years ago crawled out of the ruins of two world wars and, even under the shadow of being acquired by a giant, kept its own independent technological soul? The beginning of the story is not glory, but a locked factory and a founder who was thrown out. In 1899, August Horch founded the Horch Company in Cologne. He had worked as an apprentice in Carl Benz's workshop, hand-finishing some of the world's first internal combustion engine parts. In those days, the automobile was still a monster laughed at by carriage drivers. What Horch learned in Benz's factory was a simple truth: metal does not lie. If the roundness of a bearing deviates by the thickness of a hair, the engine will fail prematurely after a few thousand kilometers. If the torque of a screw is off by a fraction of a newton-meter, the car will develop rattles on rough roads. These invisible details are what truly determine how long a brand can survive. For Horch, a car was not four wheels and a steering wheel. It was a work of art that had to be forged together by a blacksmith's hammer and an engineer's caliper. He had a favorite saying: "Every Horch engine must run continuously on my desk for 100 hours before delivery." 100 hours, more than 4 days, full load, non-stop. Today's engine test standards are not much stricter, yet Horch, more than 100 years ago, stood next to the roaring engine with his own body, feeling every unusual vibration with his palm. That obsession quickly made Horch cars a benchmark for German luxury, standing alongside Mercedes and Maybach. From 1901 to 1908, Horch models conquered German high society with their extremely low failure rates and extraordinary longevity. A Horch sedan could easily cover 100,000 kilometers without a major engine overhaul, something almost unimaginable at the time. But that same obsession also created growing tension between Horch and his board of directors. After the First World War, Germany's economy was in turmoil. Inflation skyrocketed. Ordinary people could not even afford bread, let alone luxury cars. The board wanted to cut costs, increase volume, and launch cheaper models to capture the mass market. Horch insisted on quality before quantity, believing that lowering standards would be suicide. In 1909, the conflict exploded. Horch was forced out of his own company. Worse, the board imposed a harsh clause. August Horch was forbidden to use the Horch brand name ever again. This was the brand he had founded. He had named it after his own family, and now he was not even allowed to use that name. Standing outside the factory gates in Cologne, watching his beloved machines being taken away, Horch had only one thought: since they have taken my name, I will build a louder one. He reached for a Latin dictionary and looked up the word here. Horch in German means here. The Latin translation is Audi. It sounded similar, it meant the same thing, but it was a completely new name with no legal strings attached. On a cafe napkin, a new brand was born. In 1910, the first Audi car took to the road. Its engine was more precise than any product from the Horch era, featuring advanced overhead valve design and lightweight pistons. Within the first month, an Audi won a rally championship. Horch told his old company with a new name, "You can take my trademark, but you cannot take the skill in my hands." This story tells us that from its very first day, Audi carried a special gene: the fear of losing its name. A man who had once failed to protect his own name would spend the rest of his life proving one thing: a name can be stripped away, but the file in an engineer's hand, that no one can take. Yet a brand's destiny depends on more than a single obsessed founder. In the late 1920s, the Great Depression swept the world, and Germany's automotive industry turned into a bloodbath. There were dozens of car manufacturers hacking at each other in a market with paper-thin profits. August Horch's second company, Audi, was also on the verge of a cash crisis. At that moment, the state government of Saxony played matchmaker. They pulled 4 companies, each with its own speciality, to the same table: Horch, ultra-luxury; Audi, cutting-edge technology; Wanderer, mid-range cars, and DKW, the king of motorcycles and small cars. The four companies decided to merge and form the Auto Union. This was not merely a warm embrace to survive. It was a brilliantly executed defensive merger. Each company had its own market segment, so they did not cannibalize each other. More importantly, they shared development platforms and patent pools. DKW's two-stroke technology found its way into Audi's small cars. Horch's 8-cylinder engines were borrowed by Wanderer's flagship models. And Audi's aluminium lightweight technology entered every brand. After the merger, development costs were spread widely. Larger purchasing volumes brought bargaining power, and the sales network covered everything from low-cost motorcycles to top-end luxury sedans. Auto Union became Germany's second-largest automotive group, second only to Opel. For companies together could draw a foraying badge. That was not a decoration. It was the visualization of a business defense pact. In the brutal world of capital, sometimes you join forces not to grow bigger, but to avoid dying. During the Great Depression, Auto Union not only survived thanks to the four rings, but also accumulated a solid technological foundation, including the lightweight body and aerodynamic know-how that would later become Audi's technical totems. But the true darkest hour was yet to come. After the Second World War broke out, Auto Union's factories were requisitioned by the Nazis and turned to producing military trucks and aircraft parts. When the war ended, the Soviet Red Army occupied Saxony. They practically stripped Auto Union's factories bare, even prying the floor tiles from the workshops. The precision machine tools that had once been used to craft Horch engines were loaded onto trains and shipped thousands of kilometers to the Soviet Union. Drawings were burned, dies were melted, technical archives were treated as waste paper. Overnight, Auto Union's brand assets were reduced to zero. This was not a restructuring. It was total erasure. But a small group of Auto Union's core people had quietly retreated to West Germany a few days before the German surrender. They had no drawings, no machines, only the experience stored in their brains and a stubborn will. The four rings must not die. In 1949, they found an abandoned military barracks in Ingolstadt, West Germany, and re-registered the Auto Union Company. No factory, they used the barracks' tin sheds. No capital, they relied on post-war reconstruction subsidies and tiny bank loans. The first products to roll off the line were DKW motorcycles and small vans. No 8-cylinder luxury cars. No aluminium lightweight sports cars. Only the simplest civilian goods that could keep the workers fed. From Germany's second-largest automotive group to a tin shed in Ingolstadt, that was Audi's real situation after the war. What truly lifted Audi from the rubble was not its own technology, but an acquisition deal with the Volkswagen Group in the 1960s. In 1964, Volkswagen bought 50% of Auto Union for less than 30 million Deutschmarks, later increasing its stake to full ownership. To outsiders, Audi now belonged to Volkswagen. It would build parts for the Beetle and take design orders from Wolfsburg. But Audi management made a very clever decision. They kept an independent R&D department. Volkswagen's chairman at the time, Heinrich Nordhoff, gave Audi only one requirement. Don't clash with our internal brands Volkswagen and Porsche. You build more complex, more forward-looking cars. In other words, Volkswagen saw Audi as its technology test bed, and Audi desperately needed that role. In 1968, Audi launched the first true luxury sedan of the post-war era, the Audi 100. Its drag coefficient of 0.30 was unmatched among production cars of its time. To achieve that, Audi engineers spent thousands of hours in the wind tunnel, constantly adjusting the angle of the front end, the shape of the rear-view mirrors, and the curve of the wheel arches. The engine used a lightweight aluminium alloy block, tens of kilograms lighter than traditional cast-iron engines. The Audi 100 not only saved Audi financially, more importantly, it proved that inside the Volkswagen Group, Audi could have its own technological identity. You are not Volkswagen's appendage. You are Volkswagen's advanced laboratory. This survival strategy of independence within a tight space laid the foundation for Audi's later technical explosion. If there is one thread that runs through Audi's 100 years, it is just two words: technological obsession. And in Audi's technical dictionary, the most important word is Quattro. In 1980, Audi unveiled a seemingly ordinary two-door coupe at the Geneva Motor Show, the Audi Quattro. Its engine was not extreme, a 5-cylinder turbocharger producing 200 horsepower. But it had one feature that left the entire automotive world stunned: a permanent all-wheel drive system. At that time, four-wheel drive was only for off-road vehicles and military trucks. No one thought a sedan needed four-wheel drive. The systems were heavy, expensive, thirsty, and ate up interior space. While studying military off-roaders on ice and snow, Audi engineers suddenly thought, if a sedan also had four-wheel drive, would its handling limit on rainy days, snowy roads, and slippery corners far exceed that of front-wheel or rear-wheel drive cars? They spent 3 years shrinking a bulky four-wheel drive system to fit inside a normal sedan, eliminating the complicated transfer case, and achieving fully automatic front-rear torque distribution. To verify the system's reliability, the engineers took prototypes to winter test grounds in Finland, driving tens of thousands of kilometers at -30 degrees Celsius. The result was that the Audi Quattro dominated rally racing like an alien invader. From 1982 to 1984, the Audi Quattro rally car won consecutive championships in the World Rally Championship. Drivers described how, on ice and snow stages, other cars struggled while the Audi Quattro drove as if on rails. No matter how sharp the corner or how slippery the surface, all four wheels bit into the ground with unbreakable grip. Audi executed a textbook marketing move. They directly translated their dominance in rallying to their production cars. The word Quattro ceased to be a technical parameter and became the totem of the Audi brand. A buyer might never use four-wheel drive in their lifetime, but they were willing to pay 20% more for the psychological comfort of "I have Quattro." Over the following decades, Audi continuously upgraded Quattro technology, from purely mechanical torsion differentials to electronic torque vectoring, from petrol cars to electric vehicles. All-wheel drive became Audi's deepest technical moat. Beyond Quattro, Audi built another technical moat: light. In 2013, Audi launched Matrix LED headlights. They consisted of dozens of individual LED units, each of which could be lit or turned off independently. When an oncoming car approached, the headlights automatically shut off the units that would shine toward that car, while keeping full high-beam illumination everywhere else. That meant you could drive with your high beams permanently on without ever blinding anyone. Behind this was a complex fusion of sensors and real-time control algorithms. The headlights adjusted tens of times per second with pixel-level accuracy. This was no longer just lighting. It was an optical array with LiDAR-like intelligence. Audi turned a safety accessory into a status symbol for owners. From then on, Audi earned a unique nickname: the Lamp Factory. That was more direct than any advertising slogan. When you saw a smooth ribbon of light sweeping across the dark road, the dynamic turn signals flowing like water, you did not even need to see the badge to know it was an Audi. But technical obsession also brought Audi a huge crisis. In the mid-1980s, the American media reported that the Audi 5000 suffered from unintended acceleration. The car would suddenly accelerate on its own while stationary. Although later investigations found that most incidents were caused by drivers mistakenly pressing the accelerator pedal instead of the brake, public opinion had already spiraled out of control. One television network staged a demonstration. They mounted a camera in the passenger seat and had an actor pretend to panic and hit the wrong pedal, then edited it to look like the car accelerated by itself. The public panic caused Audi's U.S. sales to plummet from over 70,000 to just over 20,000. It took a full decade to recover. Dealerships dropped the brand, used car values collapsed, and Audi nearly abandoned the American market. Audi's response showed another kind of obsession from a technology-driven brand. They did not spend money trying to suppress the media or paper over the problem with press releases. Instead, They invested heavily in a comprehensive upgrade of the electronic throttle control system on all models, added a brake priority logic, and even built driving simulation tests that were stricter than U.S. federal regulations, using machines to simulate thousands of hours of various driver errors. They turned the crisis into yet another upgrade of their own engineering standards. Eventually, after a multi-year investigation, the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration officially cleared the Audi 5000, finding no design defect. But Audi did not care much about that clearance, because they had already proven the same thing to a higher standard in their own laboratory. This way of answering criticism with technology was more convincing than any PR campaign. Throughout Audi's 120-plus years, its name could be taken away, its factories could be dismantled, its brand could be acquired, but one thing never changed: reverence for technology and a pathological pursuit of precision. That gene came from the young August Horch, who filed metal parts in Carl Benz's workshop in the 19th century, from the engineers in the early 1900s who tore down and rebuilt 8-cylinder engines again and again, and from the aerodynamic specialists today at the Ingolstadt RD Center who optimized drag coefficients day after day. Whether it was the fire of world wars, the hunger of the Great Depression, or the collapse of trust in the American market, Audi always chose the same path: use even stronger technology to repair the shortcomings of earlier technology. Today, Audi is undergoing its electric transformation. The e-tron family, Q4 e-tron, Q6 e-tron, they no longer need the traditional Quattro mechanical differential, because electric motors can control each wheel independently, responding 100 times faster than any mechanical diff. But Audi still calls it e-Quattro, because they know that the customer does not buy the technology itself, they buy the confidence that the technology brings. In the electric era, Audi's matrix headlights have become digital matrix LEDs, capable of projecting lane markings onto the road or even animations showing the car yielding to pedestrians. Quattro has become millisecond torque distribution via electric motors. Drag coefficients have been pushed below 0.26. Range is extracted kilometer by kilometer. What changes is the source of energy. What remains is the belief: if you cannot be the best, do not do it at all. Audi's 4 rings represent 4 dying companies that huddled together for warmth during the Great Depression. They also represent a man who, after being stripped of his name, used Latin to reclaim his dignity. Today, the 4 rings mean, at night, your vision will never be swallowed by blind spots. On every slippery mountain road, your wheels will stick like magnets. This is not just the evolution of a car. It is a business epic about how to turn every desperate moment into the starting point of new technology. Next time you see, in the dead of night, a line of dynamic turn signals flowing like water, or hear the unique, slightly raspy roar of a 5-cylinder engine, remember that engineer standing outside the factory gates in Cologne, with nothing but a file and a Latin dictionary. He lost everything, but he never lost his faith in metal. That faith, 120 years later, still beats quietly in the chassis of every Audi.